Is everybody else ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. I call the meeting to order. We begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bergman?
Present.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Present.
Commissioner Harper-Pedersen?
Present.
Vice Chair Bradley?
Present.
Chair Silverman?
Present. The next item is public comment. This public comment period is intended for comment on items that are not on the agenda. Is anyone here to speak to an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none. The next item is approval of the minutes. There are 2 minutes for approval. The first is from May 15th, and I would just note that these were up for approval last meeting, and I don't believe there were any comments other than mine. I mistakenly believed that there was an inaccuracy in the minutes, but I was wrong, not the minutes. So unless anyone has any changes, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Oh, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper-Pedersen?
Abstain.
Vice Chair Bradley?
Yes.
And Chair Silverman?
Yes. The next set of minutes is from the June 19th, 2017 meeting. I do not have any changes. Does anybody have any changes?
I don't have any changes.
None for me.
All right. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Second.
No, I got it. You only get the second one.
I beat you to the punch.
You're slow on your seconds there.
Second. I thirded it.
You thirded it. That's fine. Let the record reflect there was a third in that motion.
Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper-Pedersen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bradley?
Yes.
And Chair Silverman?
Yes. We're now moving to public hearing. I'm going to briefly read it's not brief. I'm going to read the procedure for public hearing. Staff will present a report on the history, physical features, etc. on the application, followed by the staff's recommendations. The applicant will make a presentation. Thereafter, interested members of the community may speak on the proposal. When all interested parties have had an opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed and no further discussion from the floor can be held. The Commission will then consider the evidence and make its recommendation. If you challenge a public hearing item in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in the notice, the public notice, or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. Speakers shall we ask that speakers fill out a speaker's form found by the door and hand it to the recording secretary prior to addressing the Commission. The speaker should come up to the microphone to speak since the meeting is being recorded. This will assist staff in preparing the minutes. The first item is 26 El Camino Real. Consideration of a design review and conditional use permit regarding a new hotel. I'd note that up on the days we have some correspondence. We have an email from Nicole Cabdarest Arrest. We have an email from Paula Ebiger Moffett. We have an email from Ellen Luttrell. We have a email/letter from Melody Pagee. We all have copies of those, and I believe we've all had an opportunity to review them. That's the correspondence we have. We also have what appears to be an amended grading and dirt hall approval certificate. I'm assuming that it is in response to Ms. Pagee's note that we were missing page 3 in our packet. And I'm assuming that this is the same page 3 that was previously submitted in March, or was it May?
Let's go with yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. With that, staff has a presentation.
Good evening. The item before you is consideration of design review, conditional use permit, transportation demand management plan, and a grading and dirt haul certificate for a new hotel at 26 El Camino. Just to orient you a bit to the site is located along El Camino Real at Spring Street and Laurel Street with a lot size of 20,495 square feet. The existing hotel contains 29 guest rooms within a two-story building with surface parking as well as a pool at the corner of El Camino and Spring Street. The building was constructed in 1953 with some upgrades completed in 1991. The site is zoned mixed-use North Boulevard with a general plan land use designation of mixed-use medium density. A condominium building is located just to the north, adjacent to the site at 1 Laurel Street, with an office building also located to the north along El Camino Real. There's a mix of retail and service uses located along Spring Street, just south along El Camino Real, as well as across the street on El Camino Real is regional serving retail. The applicant is requesting a development of a 104-room hotel with underground parking and landscape improvements. As I indicated, the entitlements include design review, a conditional use permit to allow parking within 40 feet of a street property line, transportation demand management plan, and grading and dirt haul to accommodate the below-grade parking as well as lower the building into the hillside. A traffic study was completed by Hexagon Transportation Consultants, and that determined that the project with implementation of the TDM measures would generate a net increase of 29 a.m. peak hour trips and 33 p.m. peak hour trips. The study evaluated the traffic conditions at 4 intersections in the project vicinity and determined that the project would not have a significant effect on the level of service at those signalized intersections and did not warrant any traffic improvements. Hexagon staff is here this evening and is able to respond to your traffic or parking questions. The city retained the services of David J. Powers to evaluate the appropriate environmental analysis consistent with the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. Based on their analysis of the proposed development, the project meets the criteria for an infill development exemption. No further environmental analysis is needed, and their memo detailing that analysis is included in your packet. So the next item up is your design review. This is a view of the building at the corner of El Camino Real and Spring Street. The architectural design of the building is contemporary with the use of painted cement plaster and smooth and panel systems, sunshades, glazing system with white window frames and metal shades. There's also stone treatment at the base of the building, and I have the color and materials board for you.
Thank you.
This elevation along El Camino does have larger windows, as I indicated, the stone base with metal lattice as well at the base for some landscaping to grow up that portion of the building. And also they're going to widen the sidewalk by 3 feet along El Camino Real and add 2 new street trees. Just another view as you would be seeing it driving south on El Camino Real. The white block next to it is a massing of what that office building next door at the 3 stories. And then we have further views along Spring Street is the top elevation. This is where the main entrance to the hotel would be for the parking as well as to the lobby. And then the north elevation represents the interior side, so facing the office building and facing the condominium building adjacent. The west elevation is viewed along Laurel Street. Staff has added a condition requiring additional tree planting on Laurel Street. We've mentioned a minimum of 2 additional trees on Laurel Street. So as you see at this part, as the building is sunk into the hillside, it appears as really a 2-story building from the rear at Laurel Street. And then for the conditional use permit, it is a requirement that parking be set back at least 40 feet from the street-facing property line. The parking is fully enclosed with the building, will not be visible from the street, but you see here I've highlighted the area then that is within that 40 feet of the street-facing property line. It's about 7 feet from the property line. I believe it's about a little over 20 feet from the face of the street. So it will be fully enclosed within the parking structure and will not be visible from the street. San Carlos does require transportation demand management programs to be submitted with new developments. The applicant has submitted a plan that addresses the proximity to transportation, takes advantage of the use of Caltrain with subsidized transit passes for employees, as well as other financial incentives for employees to use alternate modes of transportation. They also note that they have on-site amenities that would be available to employees as well as their guests. In evaluating these measures, the TDM plan does comply with the city's 20% reduction, and as noted in the conditions of approval, they will be able to submit an annual reporting showing compliance with the TDM, as well as a 5-year reporting on the trip reductions as well. And then the grading and dirt haul, approximately 12,500 cubic yards of soil will be removed from the site to accommodate the below-level parking as well as lower the building into the hillside. The applicant estimates that would be 625 truck trips, and it would take about a duration of about 30 days to complete the grading. The haul route is Highway 101 to Ralston, El Camino to Spring to the site. The applicant has hosted 2 neighborhood outreach meetings. One was conducted on April 5th, the other on June 13th. And then the city most recently mailed 2 notices. One was just a letter informing the neighbors and the occupants of this meeting, as well as the city's required 10-day public notice. So during those outreach meetings, the comments were summarized, include concerns with insufficient on-site parking for employees and hotel guests. A lot of comments that Laurel Street is currently being used as a cut-through, so they're experiencing some speeding and higher levels of traffic than they've seen in the past. Also concerned with the additional traffic that the hotel would generate. Concern with the height of the new building and the impact to existing views. They requested the hotel remove the top floor of the building. Also request for story poles to better understand the building height and the massing. There was some requests for additional landscaping along Laurel Street, concern with impacts during construction, as well as privacy concern with the view into the hotel guest rooms. This would be mostly on that north-facing elevation as viewed from the condominium units directly across. And then concern with noise and fumes from the parking structure. The applicant's architect will go through some of these slides a little bit more, but just to briefly orient you, the condo, as I indicated, directly adjacent to the proposed hotel building. The one section of the hotel building is 22 feet from face of condo wall to face of hotel wall, and then the rest of the building jogs back so that the upper levels of the hotel building are approximately 50 feet from the face of the condo wall to the face of the hotel wall. And then there's also, they've oriented to where the existing office building is. And then, as I indicated, the architect did do some view study simulations as included in your packet. So the adjacent condominium building at 1 Laurel really sits on top of that hillside, and you see that first level is the garage, and then they have a stacked condominium unit. So their units are on the 2nd and 3rd floor. So this shows the view out the 2nd and 3rd floor from that first unit closest to Laurel Street. And you do see that there would be some obstruction of the lower views, but the view of the horizon would still be maintained. Oh, I'm sorry. The city protects public views as indicated in the staff report, but does not protect private views from individual properties. And so this just shows that unit. The downstairs would be the first on the left there, showing the existing view. And then with the new hotel building, you see that the lower portion of that view would be obstructed, but the view of the hills and the horizon is maintained. And then that upper level, the 3rd floor, it's a little dark, but if you can see, it would be some limited view across Spring Street. But again, the views of the horizon and the hills would be maintained. And then if the Planning Commission is prepared to take action this evening, we do have the formal motion. Staff does recommend approval of the project as it meets all of the criteria outlined in the code for the new development. I'd be happy to try to answer any of your questions.
Does anyone have any questions for staff at this time?
No.
Not currently.
I do have a question, Elisa. As far as TDM reporting and compliance, have we had any other projects that have come in to staff with those compliance results, and how do we deal with those?
I'm not sure that any have been at that stage yet.
Right.
Maybe
it might be
I'll
too
defer
early
to
for the TDM
Beth.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one project that we probably have on our schedule, I have to look at the exact language of the conditions, that is complete and is in operation, is the Palo Alto Medical Foundation. And then all of the others, you know, they're kind of in the process of getting built, and after operations commence, we'll bring those back to the commission. So at this point, we don't have any, very many examples, except for PAMP, which is forthcoming.
And then I know that a lot of the neighbors, and certainly probably everybody that lives in the city, has had some concerns about construction staging hours and some of the overflow that's gone into the neighborhood because of that. What steps does the city take when that becomes a problem, and what steps should the neighbors take should they find issues with compliance around construction?
So what we're doing first is, and this is new as of less than a year ago, is requiring construction staging plan, where the applicant, before a building permit is issued, must show us a plan where they're going to stage the materials, where the workers are going to park, you know, the limits of the construction, how it's going to be fenced. And so then we have a meeting with building, engineering, and planning and the applicant contractor to go over that plan and to make sure everybody understands the construction hours, the dirt haul routes, and that they adhere to those requirements. If there's any violations of those, we've hired Dolores Montenegro to assist us in overseeing the construction projects, to work with the contractors for compliance. So that would be the first point of contact. You can also contact the building official. If there's a clear violation of the construction hours, they should probably call the police department, because that's the best way to get immediate results when typically City Hall would be closed. And then the building official, if there's repeated violations, has the ability to issue a stop work order.
Thank you, Lisa. Those are all my questions for staff at this time, though I will have more a little later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the applicant have a presentation?
Good evening. Thank you for taking time to listen to us. And thanks staff and Lisa for doing a very good presentation. My name is Nick Daya with Sitaram Enterprises, Inc. And I'm here with my brother Dilip Daya and our architect Sharad Lal and Michelle Hunt from Hexagon Transportation. So we are proposing this development of a 104-unit Hyatt Place hotel to be located at our current hotel location, currently the Hotel San Carlos. We have been in the hotel industry for over 30 years. Our family has always been in the hotel industry. We have operated and developed multiple hotels in San Carlos since the 1990s. And in 1998, we developed our first hotel in San Carlos, currently now the Country Inn & Suites. We are heavily invested in this community and to the success of the city of San Carlos. We are a pride of ownership, operator, and family. I'll talk to you a little bit about Hyatt and its standards. A new Hyatt Place, for San Carlos, it will be a welcome addition to the city's north entrance. The branding with Hyatt brings high quality and high standards. Hyatt's worldwide name will enhance the city's standing as a bright and vibrant mid-peninsula city. Regarding further into the design aspect of it, I'd like to hand it over to our architect to speak more about the hotel specifics. So Sharad Lal.
You can use that to advance the slide.
Sure. Good evening, Chair Silverman, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Sharad Lal of SKL Associates. We are the architects for this project. Let me try to get used to this mouse here. Do I need to use this?
This one, just press that arrow.
Oh, to move forward, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a very brief presentation, and then I'll hang around if you have any specific question relating to the design. So I will just walk you through some of the slides that we have. Essentially, the site is located in a mixed-use boulevard zoning of San Carlos. And the development standards kind of acknowledges the opportunity that this site presents in this area. And we have met all the design guidelines that the zoning code establishes. And as you can see, it allows for pretty generous FAR as well as the design guidelines in terms of setbacks, proximity to El Camino. So as far as the setbacks are concerned, on El Camino we have a minimum of 5 feet to 15 feet maximum setback, and we have provided a minimum of 7 feet setback due to the fact that we have an easement along El Camino. On the other sides, on Spring, there's a minimum setback of 0 feet. And then on the north side, there's a 10 feet setback required between the property line just due to the residential development. But without the residential, you could go as close as 0 setback for the north side. On El Camino, it's a 0 setback to the property line and with a maximum setback of 15 feet to the curb side on Laurel. As you can see, we started this project more than a year ago, and we went through many iterations. Right now, we are currently on M. So we tried very different configuration on the site as well as vertically. And early on, staff had told us that there's always a concern for the residential people behind. So do something that you can reduce the height of the building as much as possible. So our original scheme naturally was to try not to go into the ground, because the ground itself is solid rock, basically, so we are trying to avoid the cost of that. And as a result of that, as you can see on this slide, the 50 feet height is marked with a dashed line. We pretty much sunk the building about 35 feet into the ground, basically, and as a result of that, it's going to cost the owners quite a lot to take all that dirt out of there. The good thing is that the rock will also help with the retaining wall situation. So, you can use the assistance of the rock to maintain the structural integrity of the retaining wall. These are some existing context photos. As you can see, the one on the right is the yard of the condo, and there are some existing trees there. As you come closer to the front, you can see on the left side is the existing hotel building, and then the retaining wall of the parking lot of the office building. This picture shows you the existing context looking from Laurel onto the condo buildings. And you can see the existing tree cover along on their lot. On the hotel side, we can't have any tall trees because of the easement. The 10 feet easement starts off somewhere mid-block and goes all the way across Laurel. We had a couple of neighborhood meetings, one in April and one in June. And due to that, we prepared several exhibits to try to show the neighborhood folks that were concerned as to what the impact of this hotel will be. And as a result of that, we got more information on the heights of the various floors on the condos. And a few of the condo inhabitants were kind enough to send some pictures to us from their living room because they were the most concerned of the impact of this project. So this is the condo on the corner of Laurel. On the second floor is the dining room. And as you can see, they're looking right now through the trees to the top of the existing roof of the building. And on the right side is we removed the trees just to give you an idea of how close or what the impact will be of the new building. This is on the third level of the condo, and this is taken also from an upstairs bedroom. You can see the neighbors were really concerned that they didn't want to miss the sunrise views and all in the morning. And you can see that pretty much that view is maintained except for some building in the foreground that takes off the lower part. But if you put the trees back there, the trees will probably screen off some of the view of the hotel. This is the adjacent building, the one unit into the lot, and this is from the balcony. Again, this is on the second floor. You can see that some of the units, the 50 feet setback area of the hotel do face the condo, And in this case too, we removed the trees so you can see through the building. But as you can see, you can still catch the horizon. And this is on the 3rd floor of the same condo. You can see that clearly, you can see all the way to the horizon. These are some other views looking eastwards towards El Camino over the office building. And this is on the upper floor of the same unit. This is mid-block looking from F Street towards the new building over the parking lot. And you can see the corner balconies of the existing condos out here. And about 50% of the lot faces the condo, and the remainder faces the parking lot and the office building itself. These are some of the views of the existing hotel, looking from the hotel into the condos. And here's the upper parking lot of the hotel. So as far as the design is concerned, we try to bring in the fresh material and look rather than just going with a stucco building. So we chose a fiber cement panel, and we have arranged that in horizontal manner as well as in a vertical fashion on the main staircase tower, using it as accents. And that gives us a play of textures, colors, and working with the fenestration, like wrapping around the windows at the corner, as well as this, the glass opening onto El Camino Real. This shows you in relation to the office building, we are probably about a story higher than the office building itself. This is looking from El Camino. As a result of the neighborhood study, we also did some solar studies, and this shows you that most of the time the shadow is away from the condos, and there's only one time when it's actually reverse. In the evening, the shadow starts moving towards the hotel from the condos. And you can see the shadow is now actually coming from the condos onto the hotel. So as far as the impact in terms of shade from the hotel side to the condo is absolutely negligible. So I have some pictures of the plan. There was, in the emails that we just got in the evening, there were some concerns about how carbon monoxide and all that will be exhausted from here. And in the basement is the only place where we'll have a requirement to exhaust it, because the first floor gets natural ventilation. So we will have carbon monoxide sensors in the basement, and there's a fan room on the corner of Laurel and Spring that will bring the exhaust out onto Spring. So it's not going to be facing on the condo side. And we'll bring it out just above the trash enclosure, which is again at the intersection of Laurel and Spring. As far as noise from the swimming pool and views into the swimming pool is kind of tucked inside the building, facing more the parking lot, so there'll be very little exposure to the condo units.
So I'm sorry, were you just showing us where the pool was?
Yeah, let's see. How do I point with this?
Oh, there's no laser. I think there might be one on the mouse if you wanted to try.
Yep. So this is where the pool is. It's a very small pool, and as any hotel, they'll always have regulations on when it closes. Probably 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. it'll close.
But the pool is right next to it's not right next to, it's on the same side, just in front of the condo building, right?
And again, like I said, it's tucked in, so there's office space out here on the first floor, and the pool is right next to the office space. So it's facing the parking lot of the office building.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the roof plan. There was some concern about having a white color roof, and we will be using single ply roof, but we don't have to use white. It comes in various shades of gray, so we don't have to use the white color roof as far as the roofing is concerned. With that, I'd like to conclude my presentation, and if you have any other questions, I'll just hang around.
Yeah, I just have two quick questions. In the project description, it mentions a cafe, and I'm curious, is the cafe open to the public or is it just for hotel guests?
It's mainly for hotel guests.
Okay.
Yes.
You understand I'm asking particularly because we're going to be talking about traffic, and of course if it was a larger restaurant meant for public use, then that would create more of a traffic issue.
I believe predominantly it's for breakfast only.
Okay, so its intended use is for the hotel guests.
Yeah, it's a hotel guest, and it's a free breakfast that's provided to
Got
the
it.
hotel guests.
Okay, so it's what I have in my mind. Okay, thank you. And then my second question is, because the appearance of the roof does seem to be at issue, you had mentioned that there are options to change the colors of
Right.
of the roof,
Right.
because it does look like, indeed, some of the
They're looking
residents
onto
will
the-
be looking onto the roof.
Right.
Would you be open to something else that might soften the appearance of the roof?
Well, one thing was suggested was a green roof. And, with a wood frame building, it always is an issue as to what you can do with the roof. So if it was a concrete structure, I would be more open to doing something there.
So maybe not a roof garden, but maybe something else that might soften the appearance that would be appropriate for a wood structure.
Yeah, we can see what else. We can talk to staff and
Okay.
maybe come up with something.
Okay. Those are my only questions for now. Thank
I
you.
had one thing that I mentioned. One of the last items of the staff report, asked for the hotel to provide 2 bicycle parking. And as the ownership has pointed out to me that that becomes a liability. They talk to the insurance company. And if anyone takes the bike and goes down the hill and crashes, it's a liability. So they would like to exclude that of the...
Thank you.
Also, providing the bicycle was not part of the TDM. It was just we have a bicycle path available for that.
Talk more about that at some point. Those are my only questions, guys. Sorry.
Anyone else have any questions for the architect at this time?
Not for the architect, but the applicant.
Okay.
How many employees are you anticipating working there and shifts?
In totality, we will have around 18 to 22, so an average of 20 employees, but they're not all going to be working together.
Is there a requirement for Hyatt to have it staffed at a certain level? And if so, what is that?
Now, the way Hyatt has it arranged where we have the cafe and registration, they're both co-trained. But in generally, there will be at least 2 employees at the minimum, but there will be certain times within the night, say 1 a.m. to 5 a.m., there'll be just one person. But
How does that compare with the employees that you currently have at the hotel that exists?
Currently, we have 4.
Okay, so a big difference to be expected.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys going to be providing, I didn't see anything about a shuttle for your, the people that are going to be staying there.
No, there is no shuttle for any guests to come in on from the airports or wherever.
Currently, what's the occupancy rate right now, average for hotels right now?
Hotels in the Bay Area, they're in the mid-80s.
Mid-80s.
Mhm.
That's it for right now.
Anything else for the applicant at this time? You had a little bit more of your presentation. Looked like there was another slide. You were going to tell us about benefits? No? I'm out.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk anymore.
Okay.
I just...
Yes, I felt that this is a good, the hotel that's existing out there is, more than 50 years old, and I think this is a good opportunity to enhance the gateway location of this site. Like the owner pointed out that the Hyatt Place is an upscale brand, so the clientele that will be there are going to be people that will, you can expect minimum nuisance from them if the neighborhood is concerned about that. It's locally owned and operated. They are based in San Carlos. They almost have their office in the current country inn, so they'll have oversight of what goes on in this hotel to avoid any type of nuisance occurring out there. when a hotel like this goes in, when someone invests $15-20 million in a project, the property values in the neighborhood generally will go up, So, and we expect other underutilized properties in the neighborhood to also seek out and do something because of the confidence a hotel developer had investing the money in there. The tax dollars to the city, this will be a significant amount. The city could hire a few cops, with the tax dollars directly, or wherever they need to hire people. There will be local jobs created because most of the employees will be locally based. And it'll provide customers for the local businesses. So people that stay here will go and patronize the restaurants and other businesses in the area. And lastly, of course, instead of losing visitors to this area, to other cities, you can keep them in San Carlos, whether it's a family visiting or, people visiting hospitals nearby, they'll stay in San Carlos and contribute to the tax dollars there.
Right. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move on to public comment. I have 12 comment cards. We normally limit comment to 2 minutes per person. If you need more time, please let me know, and we'll seriously consider the request. But keep in mind there are a lot of people who want to talk. I see there's someone with a little one. If you want to go first, you're welcome to, and you're planning on speaking, you're welcome to come up. Okay, well, it's up to you, however you want to do it. Okay. Okay, well, give me a second to start the timer then, so I'll know. All right. There we go.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Ziegler, and I live in the condo complex that's right next to the proposed hotel in Unit 109, and clearly I have concerns about the new structure. I'd like to mention two things really quickly. One, we're definitely concerned with the noise and air quality. From what I understand from the diagrams, there's a ramp to the garage that's right next to our building, and that ramp is right next to our living room and bedrooms, and obviously concerned about the noise of cars going in and out, and also gases and emissions from those cars. Has there been any air study regarding those, and can you guarantee that that isn't going to affect our quality of life and coming into our bedrooms and things like that? And noise as well. My daughter and us, our bedrooms are right there. So her bedroom is closer to where the pool, that side is, and that's obviously a concern. Also, I just want to mention that we were, I think someone mentioned that they asked for and were given, sorry, I'm not used to speaking publicly, but asked for photographs of windows and things like that. And only one of our neighbors was asked. My neighbor, we were not asked. And we are one of the units that is most directly affected by this structure. So we were not asked for that, nor were we notified of the second meeting by the hotel, which was very disappointing, to say the least. So nor was I given any response from the city after the first meeting when I had some follow-up questions. So I've been disappointed in general by the outreach to the community and following up with us and listening to our concerns. I just wanted to mention that and get it on record. I started a petition on change.org about this development, and to date I have 143 signatures from only in our neighborhood, so I think that's pretty good just for local people. And I just wanted to read some of the comments. It's all San Carlos residents. From Mary Margaret Flynn, MD, limit the project and heighten footprint. Seems like the city of San Carlos has given the green light to developers whose projects don't take into consideration their impact on San Carlos residents. Yvette Royce, I do not want to see a 4-story hotel erected anywhere close to Laurel Street. Paul Magnetti, Greater East San Carlos is ground zero for overdevelopment.
Cynthia de Lamars. Structures like this one, especially when placed near residents, ruin the hometown feel of San Carlos. More and more large buildings are going in. Thus, it's unwanted, unnecessary, and ugly. We have a great tax base, so why all the greed? Andy Bladsbed, a project of this size and magnitude will negatively impact property values in this neighborhood for a multitude of reasons. Privia Joseph, growth needs to be good, not this repeat affair of city-employed consultants telling us there is zero traffic impact. Kristen Kirkertan, because there are too many people and too many cars in this neighborhood. Tara Blathett, San Carlos is getting overdeveloped. It no longer feels like a family residential community. Dana Magdaleno, I currently live in San Carlos, but I'm not sure for how much longer due to all of the issues surrounding these new developments. Peggy Wilson, I am against this project because it is too large for the neighborhood. Rashmith Kathmith, we have too much growth here for a small city. Let us not overbuild. Traffic and parking is already an issue in addition to noise. Jennifer Valkov, we don't need a giant hotel in this spot. It robs existing residents of quality of life and benefits no one but the developers.
Ms. Ziegler?
Yes.
About how much more time do you you've been going 4 minutes. So,
okay. Well, I can leave this with you.
You can certainly leave it with us.
I will leave it with you. I just wanted to let you know that there is a lot of concern from many residents in this neighborhood about this large development.
Can you hang out for a second? Yeah. I thought we had some, didn't we have some pictures from 109 in the presentation? I thought we did. I wanted to understand, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to understand Ms. Ziegler's comments. Yeah. Well, back to the photos. Okay, there we go. Forward. So this is your unit?
Yeah.
But you don't know where they got this photo?
It's not a photograph.
Oh, this is a...
they generated it. I have no idea.
Okay, and then the next one? Okay, this is also... So you have...
Or computer generated.
Yeah.
I don't know where they got that from.
This is computer generated? Oh, this is... Wow, they did a great job. It is. So you have one of those two-story units?
Yes.
So basically the first picture, or excuse me, the first generated image would have been of the first floor, and then this one would be of the second floor.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Okay. And so you mentioned that it was your understanding that that you are going to be near the pool? Because it seems like the pool is actually quite a ways away from your unit. I'm just wondering, I want to make sure I understand your comments.
From my understanding, we're near there's a ramp for the garage on the back side of their building, which is right next to our building. And from my understanding, we're right opposite that.
Can I see that?
So do you see where that, I don't know, here, can I do this?
Yeah, so where the 22 is right there?
You see where, oh, sorry, whoa,
50.
where this is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the ramp going to the garage.
Yeah.
Where the 50
so
is?
we're like right, I don't know, we're like right in here,
Mm-hmm.
our unit? We're right here? Oh, we're right here. Okay, I'm sorry. So we're right here. So I guess the pool is farther away.
But the ramp isn't.
But the ramp is right. I mean, these are right, that's our living room, that's our dining room, those are our bedrooms right here.
And right now, what's opposite? Isn't there like a parking lot there right now?
Yeah, which is vacant most of the time.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. So now I'm just going to go through an order unless someone needs to leave. Do you need to go? No, but I just don't want to. Oh, and what's your name, ma'am? Sure, come on up. Hmm?
I'm sorry, I don't like actually these people. I prefer usually to talk to you, so this is unintentional. No worries. But first of all, I just wanted to, my name is Judy Nisham. I'm at 1 Laurel, right next to, I'm in Unit 108, which is the one at the front corner of the building. And I just wanted to confirm that we had previously sent letters the first time around, if you still have those letters.
So I know that we received them. We can certainly include them as part of the record.
I think it's important
We will.
that they're there because we put some effort and some thought into it, and we were speaking from the heart. And also, I have a little written statement. It's not very long, so I might take 4 minutes too. But I want to also say that there was a comment about retail on Spring Street. I don't know of any retail on Spring Street. So other than the hotel, I mean, there's not retail there. There's a woodworking shop or something like that. And also the references to trees. Most of the time, PG&E cuts those trees pretty short. Right now, they're kind of long, and they're tall, and they have a lot of leaves. They don't have any leaves in the wintertime, and the springtime, basically. And they're not. Most of the time, we can't even see them. From where I am in my living room and dining room, the trees are like almost below the window line. They do happen to be tall right now, and I don't know why, but PG&E, when they come, they really like cut them down. So when I'm seated in my living room, I'm now going to see, where I see nothing now, just onto the horizon, I'm going to see a building. I did send some pictures, and inadvertently, I guess I stood up to take the pictures. I should really sit down to take the pictures because I'm not standing up all the time in my living room and my dining room and my kitchen table. So I really feel that I unintentionally misled some of it's an open vista. So now I'm going to sit down, I'm going to see hotel windows and hotel rooms, at least on the bottom 1/4, if not more. So for me, that's a huge, huge impact. And my feeling is, and I did express, I don't understand why this hotel design can't change to minimize that impact. Wherein we had a meeting, this was scheduled for an agenda, on the agenda for March 20th, and we had come earlier to speak with Lisa because we just found out about it and we got the item pulled. You guys kindly agreed to pull it. And then our first meeting in April was with the hotel owners, wherein all these concerns that you've heard were expressed. Our second meeting with them was in June. So at the April 5th meeting, I and others requested that the hotel owners go back to the drawing board and use their resources and creativity to reduce the negative impact on residents' natural light, views, privacy, and property values. My personal question was, why would well-meaning community leaders deem that visitors in town for a few days have the right to better light and better views than those of us who call Spring Valley condominiums home 365 days a year? No one disagrees that the San Carlos Hotel needs some major improvements, but there has to be a way around this. It seemed reasonable that the footprint of the new structure could be reduced and/or the design reconfigured to accommodate, in particular, the families who live directly overlooking the San Carlos Hotel. When we met on June 19th, I was ever so hopeful that my biggest concerns to maintain my cherished panoramic southern views, the largest and main source of natural light, that's where I have all my windows in my condo, into my home, my privacy, and my property value would be addressed. I was prepared to be impressed. I hope you can at least begin to imagine my disappointment when, try as I may to think differently, I realized that the footprint of the structure, its proximity to One Laurel, and especially the height of the structure had not been changed in any way. Our concerns had not been heard. One request generated at the June meeting was a full-blown environmental impact review, which surely for a building of this size and the number of people it will bring into the community should be standard procedure. Another request was for the placement of story poles to enable everyone to clearly understand and envision the size of the proposed structure in relation to the One Laurel and One Elm in particular, and to the neighborhood overall. These are requests that you, as guardians and leaders of the community, should have no qualms about requiring. The impact of the proposed structure upon my neighbors, and my community's quality of life may be more of a sacrifice than we are willing to make. It may be more of a sacrifice than we should be asked to make. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Dr. John Ulrich, followed by Michelle Casare?
Hello, my name is Dr. John Ulrich, and I've been a small business owner in the town of San Carlos for 25 plus years. I'm not going to be impacted because I don't live in the immediate area there. Rather, I'm going to speak about the integrity of the Daya family. I've known them for many years, and their integrity is off the charts high. They deeply care about this community. They've raised their families here. I think we should, with open arms, welcome a business. The area is going to be developed one way or the other. And if we're going to have business owners that actually live in the community and care about the community rather than a big corporation that may have their centers in another state, I personally think that it would be nice to have people that actually care about our community and spend their money, develop a business. I think it's a beautiful site. I think it'll look great, but again, I cannot speak about the impact that it will have on the views of the people that live in the immediate area. But I do think that having owners that are of this caliber, we should consider that as part of this as well.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Can I go ahead of the lady? I have a problem with my eyes.
Sure. Do I have a slip for you, sir? Sure. Come on up, Mr. Flores. It's fine. You can keep them on if you like.
Thank you.
Sure.
My name is Jose Flores. I have lived 1 Elm Street, number 108, for more than 30 years. Lately, during peak traffic hours, it takes me between 8 minutes to get out to exit my garage. My garage faces to Laurel. The stream of northbound traffic on Laurel is fast and steady. Believe me, I don't know why the traffic study does not mention anything about this, because I have done it just to make sure that what I'm telling you is the truth. I'm not lying about. This development will for sure increase the traffic in this area. It is my understanding that the traffic study was already approved. But I wonder if they did portion of that study during the peak hours. You have the answer to that, I don't. Laurel between Hall and Ralston has become a secondary route to get to 280. This stretch could create fatalities. They drive very, very fast. There is no a traffic sign in this stretch of Laurel. This is a residential area. Foot traffic is in at all hours by all type of residents. We have elder people, we have handicapped people, we have children walking around this street. I am a disabled Vietnam veteran with multiple eye surgeries. I don't need this kind of driving. More vehicles in a residential part of this neighborhood. This is a residential area. This is not a commercial area. I understand perfectly well that this is a mixed-use codification on this. I work at night due to my surgeries. I cannot do it during the day. And I meet a good number of neighbors doing the same. Once this project takes place, there will be a good number of strange transit people walking around our neighborhood. And this will not happen only at night, it will happen on a 24/7 basis. I understand that this project means revenue for the city of San Carlos, but this profit for both the developers and the city will be at the expense of all us who are residential occupants. This is not fair. This project is surrounded by residential units. So every one of us, who lives in a single-family residence, or who lives in multiple units, or who lives on condo units, will be affected by this. The units that some of the residents over here are talking about, that their view will be blocked. I retired as a chief lending officer for a savings and loan, and I know the value of a site. I know the value that it has, a property with a view. In our area, it was no less than $50,000. They will suffer for that. I don't, because I live on an inside unit. And I can tell you that the pictures that the gentleman showed about the sunrise, I can see that from my window, even if I don't have a view. So that doesn't mean anything. The sunrise is there when you open a window. So, having said this, they also will be exposed to windows inside of the hotel. Not everyone who comes to a hotel behaves properly. They have children. The children will see, God only knows what they will see through those windows.
Mr. Flores, are you almost finished?
I am almost finished. So, as of today, in the meetings that we had with the developers and the city officials, we had yet to get a meaningful consideration to our input. We residents are being ignored. Please reconsider the proper and meaningful changes for this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Casari?
It's Casali. Thank you.
Casali, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. I put together a statement that I'm just going to read in the interest of time. And I want to say that my name is Michelle Casali. I have lived in San Carlos for the last 15 years. Currently, I am a renter in the duplex directly across the street on Spring Street. I've lived there for the past 10 years, and it is one of the properties that will be most significantly impacted by this project. I would like to start by urging the council to make it a policy to be sure to always include renters in notifications of these types of development, because I was not notified. And I just think that since it's going to affect the quality of my residency and my neighborhood, that I should be equally notified of this kind of thing. Second, since the neighborhood is primarily renters, there may not be the same vested interest in this project as compared to if it were a neighborhood of homeowners, which likely reflects the volume of people here tonight speaking on behalf of their concerns for this project. Nonetheless, as a renter, this neighborhood has been my home for more than 10 years. San Carlos North, where I live, is a residential neighborhood, and a hotel of this size will change it to one that is more of a commercial neighborhood. This 4-story hotel will accommodate more than 100 guests nightly, which will bring a significant number of transient people to this neighborhood. I care about my neighborhood community, and I've chosen to live in San Carlos because it is family-friendly and a great place to raise my son, and this will just definitely change the quality of my neighborhood. I'm worried about my son crossing the street safely with the traffic and how fast cars travel on Laurel Street into and from Belmont. And in the last year, there has been increased northbound traffic on the El Camino with the afternoon commute, and many are using Laurel as a way to get to Ralston. I asked that the city put it in a 4-way stop at the corner of Laurel and Spring Streets, and also crosswalks.
What was that other street that you mentioned? You said
Spring Street. There are no crosswalks there this time, and a 4-way stop I think is really essential here.
Laurel and Spring Street.
Mm-hmm. Regardless of whether or not this hotel project goes through, the crosswalks and the stop are really necessary. I have read through the traffic study and I've heard the reports, but daily I observe and I experience firsthand near misses, and this traffic study does not at all reflect what I experience. Street parking on my block and the adjoining streets will be impacted given the ratio of rooms to parking spaces and the parking staff needs. Currently, there are no restrictions on the blocks adjacent to my home. I urge the council to require residential-only parking on the blocks in my neighborhood. I'm also concerned about the construction worker parking that, and I'm worried that it will make parking impossible on my block and even prohibit me from putting out the 3 trash cans that we all have. I'm concerned that the large construction trucks will obstruct visibility for the intersection crossing at Spring and Laurel, and given my proximity to the site, as well as access to my garage. I heard the person, I think it was Lisa, she mentioned that there was going to be some kind of commission that reviews what is acceptable for construction, the process of construction, but that wasn't very specific, and I just wonder what will be the parameters for construction day to day. The hotel project will directly impair the views of my building. It's one of the most impacted buildings, and it's one of the nicest features of where I live. I urge the council to require story poles. Additionally, the colors of the building, landscaping, rooftop design should be required to be exactly transparent to residents. A lot of those pictures they showed you were computer generated and they're just not real. The renderings make the project appear in a way that is not exact to what it will really look like at its completion. Considering this is a residential neighborhood and all the views that it will obstruct, the landscaping and colors of the hotel should be required to be aesthetically inconspicuous as much as possible. With the underground garage, the fumes from the cars will affect the air quality of my home. I'm used to keeping my windows open, and like most homes in the neighborhood, there isn't central air.
Ms. Casali, are you almost done?
I'm almost done. I'm sorry. Let me have just a couple more
You've been going 5 minutes. If you could wrap it up,
I will wrap it up. I'm really concerned about the construction pollution, the fumes and debris clearing dust, and that will affect the quality of air given the size of this project. For all these points, I urge the Planning Commission to mandate an environmental impact study before moving forward, especially given the number of other large projects going on simultaneously in San Carlos. And since this is a residential neighborhood, I urge the council to limit construction to weekdays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and disallow any weekend construction. And lastly, I want to stress that San Carlos North has been a residential neighborhood, and this commercial-sized project will change that. So thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry for going over.
No, that's quite all right.
I did make copies, but of my statement.
We can make it part of the record if you'd like.
And then the homeowner that I rent from also.
She submitted a letter. Yeah, we have that. Thanks. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you for your time. Is this multiple copies of? Yeah. No apology necessary. Mr. Eaton?
Doesn't want to stay there. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Don Eaton. I've been a longtime resident here in San Carlos. I'm in favor of this project, and I'd like to tell you the reasons why. First off, it has a terrific location that's appropriately used that will increase and complement the vibrancy of a commercial corridor, namely El Camino Real. It'll help the nearby restaurants. It'll help the downtown ultimately, and it's appropriately designed that way. I think it gives us an opportunity to bring a Hyatt brand to San Carlos, which is not a bad thing at all in this particular case for this level of a hotel. I think that in approving this, you would be endorsing quality, experienced, local owner-operators who have worked very hard with the Hyatt people to try to come up with an appropriate design that way. This particular design, I feel, is very attractive. It's a good addition to El Camino, which is, of course, the grand boulevard for the peninsula. I believe it meets all the code requirements that in its design. From my understanding, it does not block any views of the bay because it is cut into the hill, and that has been done at substantial cost, additional costs to the applicant that way, into the millions of dollars. The applicant has, to my understanding, initiated neighborhood contact, neighborhood outreach, and discussion with over 250 people according to what the staff report says, and that's a substantial effort to do that. And they've done so to try to explain what they're doing, to be open with them, and I think that's a very positive thing for anyone who wants to build here in town. As for the traffic potential issues, of course, anytime you build anything, there's bound to have a little more traffic. But I think when you rely on your hired, what I'll call the neutral, consistent consultant, they say that there's no significant traffic impacts. Therefore, I would urge you to approve all of the related items that are before you here tonight and allow this fine project to come to San Carlos. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon? Well, technically it's 2, but we've been...
I'll speed through, try to get through
but we'll give you a reasonable amount of time.
Thank you so much. So I'm just curious if any of the people speaking on behalf of the Daya family actually live in our neighborhood, because if they don't, it's really easy to make statements that supporting this project is great because you have no skin in the game. You can clearly see from the diagrams that were presented tonight that views are going to be compromised. So when the architect comes along and presents theoreticals like, well, revenue will go up and this and that, I fail to see how the value of my unit or my neighbor's units will go up when their views are being basically cut in half. And that's going to result in, it has to result in depreciation for the entire complex, because if one unit's value goes down, we all go down at the same time. So I'm just kind of wondering how a project like this goes on for a year and we're only notified that it's going to take place in April. So I would think that's something, given that it's in actual residential neighborhood, not a commercially zoned area, that we would have been at least given some input into discussions that were taking place. And maybe we would have had more time to work on designs and whatnot. But I've also heard tonight that outreach had taken place and that there was communication sent to 250 people and this and that. That may have been the intent, but that didn't happen. I mean, I only found out about the initial meeting that was to take place in April to vote from my neighbors, and that was after they found out after the fact as well. So again, it's great that attempts were made to reach out and work with the neighborhood, but when communications, some neighbors received that after the meeting was scheduled to take place, that leads me to think that insufficient efforts were made and that maybe somebody was just trying to get this project through without notifying the neighborhood. Because again, this is a residential neighborhood. It's not commercials. There's a lot of homeowners in the area that are looking at valid concerns about, walking with their kids through the neighborhood, having their views taken away, seeing, a place that they've made their home go down in value. And there's nothing they can do a whole lot about. So, the meeting tonight is great. Hopefully, we've been able to open your eyes to some of our concerns, and maybe the council can at least take a step back and look at the designs again, and maybe we can work something out to try to, make it a little more a situation that works better for everyone. But otherwise, it's really a concern that the city of good living, that's the slogan of San Carlos, but good living for who? For transients that come here to stay for the weekend, or for people that pay taxes and vote. So it is a concern for a place that purports to be so community-oriented and want to take care of the residents, but you're not really taking care of the residents in this situation. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Biliak?
My name is Masha Bilyak, and I live at 1 Laurel Street, 107. So my unit facing Laurel Street. I don't have view right now, so I won't be impacted by view problems. So my biggest concern is traffic and safety. Traffic is bad already. I can say it because I can see it every day, my unit facing Laurel Street. And sometimes, especially if you park your car across the street and you need to cross the street to go to your unit, it's hard. Because number one, it's traffic both ways. Number two, cars are just flying. We don't have stops, and it's hill, and you don't know where car coming from. It's just a matter of time if something bad could happen, because I can see it every time, every day. So, and we need to take to consideration that we have a lot of elderly people with disabilities, including, unfortunately, my husband. And it's really hard for them just simply cross the street. Besides that, I don't feel comfortable to live between two hotels, between two monsters. One hotel, I think it's Holiday Inn, and second one you're going to build. So we have two huge hotels within one block. I don't think it's right, because everybody keep forgetting this is, for God's sake, residential area. And I don't feel comfortable to live between two hotels, because it's just random people who renting room for 2-3 nights, and who knows who lives there, and it affects all our neighborhood. This is a residential area, and I mean, if you will decide to build something, we need to do it right. It should be something smaller, and it should be something reasonable, and should not affect quality of our lives. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Sahibi? How bad was that?
No, perfect.
No, it wasn't. All right, I'll take it.
Good evening. I live in Van Laurel, 108. And it's very interesting to me. We are not against development, obviously, but very first meeting that we had with the applicants, we asked why all of a sudden 4 times the size. That was the very first concern. You have 29 rooms, all of a sudden you want 104, almost 4 times. They said Hyatt wants that. Less than 100, Hyatt wouldn't approve it. So it seems to me it's going to be unintended consequences. So we talk a lot that responsible local people, but they have to go with the decision of corporation without studying what impact really has to the next door condo, that people living there. And one other thing that during the discussion we learned, that the applicant never built anything next to a residential establishment. All of their other developments and all of the existing hotels were built in industrial. That's the first time they are doing a project next to a residential. And as far as I know, there is no study done how it's going to impact the quality of all the things that people talk, traffic, air quality, light, and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tulek?
Actually, I was just about to make the same point, but to emphasize again, actually, if we look to this project, like one thing clear to me is that the only part of this project that's not taking a risk is Hyatt, the corporation. All of us here are like taking a risk to build such a big building next to a residential area and hoping that it will bring the development like promise that it brings. But I also had the same impression from previous meetings when we asked like why the hotel is going to be so big. The explanation was because Hyatt wants it to be that big and they are not interested for anything smaller than that. So I'm also worried about like even the current hotel is not executed very well. There are already so many complaints. I wonder if when the size becomes like 4 times the current one, whether the applicants will be able to like execute the way the neighbors will ask for. The second thing is I just moved to San Carlos 2 years ago from Burlingame. I was hoping that I will come to a like very nice neighborhood, city of good living. And when I bought my property, one of the appraisal lines was $50,000 just for the view. And now I'm going to lose some of it, and I believe other neighborhoods will be affected even worse than that. I don't know, like, the total cost of this will be for the city in the long run, when this hotel starts to like rust, when this hotel is not very well maintained, when there is any economic crisis or something like that in the following years. This huge hotel may become like a ghost hotel, and we will just live next to that. So that's another concern I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Mr. McNeil.
Good evening. My name is Robert McNeil. I live in Unit 109 at 1 Laurel Street. My wife and daughter were here. Yeah, I think we're the most impacted by this development or proposed development. And in principle, I'm not opposed to it. What I'm opposed to is the size and maybe the lack of consideration of the impact on the neighborhood, as everyone has been talking about tonight. And I think there's some risk here that the city is not doing its due diligence to consider all the factors, or maybe trying to rush this through. I think if this was permitted tonight, it would be a mistake, and the city would be accepting a lot of liability. I have a letter that I'll give you to put into the record after the fact. I'll try and highlight the most salient points. I think most importantly is that the EIR exemption is not valid, and communication that was sent to us, saying that this meeting was going to be held tonight, they cited the California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15332, which exempts infill development meeting general plan policies and applicable zoning regulations from further environmental review. I looked up this regulation. That one quote was a selection of one of many criteria that have to be satisfied, and other criteria stress emphatically that environmental considerations have to be taken into consideration. In the discussion for this, it says, this class is not intended to be applied to projects which would result in any significant traffic noise, air quality, water quality effects, etc. So I think that the city has not shown due care in requiring that all environmental criteria be mitigated to the point of insignificance. I can cite several things that I'm concerned of. I'm a mechanical engineer with expertise in structural design analysis, acoustic design and analysis. I've had published papers, worked with the federal government. And in my estimation, I'm concerned about the excavation, the level of excavation that's going to go on directly adjacent to my condo and this large structure. They're going to be digging into, multi-stories, less than 20 feet away from our structure. I've seen nothing about what's mitigating our building falling into that excavated land, or what's going to protect us. I don't think, has an engineer signed off on this yet? Has a professional engineer signed off on this? What is the city requiring for insurance liability from the developer? And is the city willing to take on the liability of this project without performing a full environmental impact report? Because that's what we're dealing with here. With respect to noise, the pool was discussed. Again, I have credentials in acoustic design and analysis. While the pool is, has some separation from our unit, the design of the building is like an amphitheater towards our building. And it would actually amplify and direct the noise onto our structure, as would the traffic noise from the up and down ramps from the subterranean parking. Back to the excavation, we've heard that it's bedrock. How are they going to get through the bedrock? Is there going to be blasting to get through it? Is it going to be jackhammering for months? What decibel level is appropriate and in compliance with city noise ordinance? And how are we going to ensure that they conform to that? I've seen nothing on that. This is another concern that an EIR would help investigate. We've heard about the air quality issue that we're concerned about, and while I appreciate that they're venting, the parking structures, I don't know that that's sufficient, and I am not satisfied that it is sufficient. I'd like to see more.
Mr. McNeil, are you almost done?
Yes. I think the one last main point I want to make is with the parking. I know in the planner's recommendation, I looked at the rules for parking. The requirement is 1 parking space per room. There was an exception made for 80 parking spaces. The complies with 20% TDM. What is TDM?
Transportation Demand Management. It's a plan to reduce the number of trips by 20%.
Okay. Well, I think the gist of it is that we reduce the parking requirements by 20%, assuming that people are going to take the train or public buses, or there's even talk about motorcycle parking. Nobody rides a motorcycle to a hotel. Nobody takes a train. Nobody takes a bus. There is no shuttle from the airport.
So basically, they're required to put in place and implement programs that are designed to reduce the number of trips by 20%, and then they need to report how they're doing, and if what they're doing is insufficient, they then need to revise their plan to reduce the trips by 20%.
Well, we've already heard that they have no plan for a shuttle from the airport, so anyone that would take some sort of public transit from the airport, it's just not being satisfied, and I don't think that this 20% exception is appropriate for a hotel, maybe for a residence where, the transit village, people will live right next to the train, they'll take it down to Palo Alto or wherever. That applies more, not a hotel. You have baggage, you rent a car, you park at the hotel. And that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak who has not yet had an opportunity to speak? Okay, seeing none, before we close the public hearing, I wanted to note, as required by city policy, that I did meet with the developer. I want to say it was like in April or something. I don't remember exactly when, for about an hour, and they showed me another design that they haven't presented today. Does anyone else want to make a disclosure regarding?
I'd also like to disclose.
March? I don't remember when it was.
So. And I would also like to disclose my communication with the developer. I believe it within 2 weeks of when the first meeting was. I'm not sure if that's March or April, but when it was first on the agenda, it was within 2 weeks of that we went over the plans. There's different than what they presented today.
Anybody else?
Before we close public comment, can I hear from Hexagon? I believe they're here tonight, correct?
Sure. I mean,
okay?
It's absolutely okay. Yes, it's okay.
I guess we could do it after.
Yes, we could do it after.
I understand that. Hi there. So I have a bunch of questions, and indeed the last speaker mentioned a couple that that were already listed in my notes. First, I guess my first question is, why was Laurel not studied? The part between Spring and
Hall.
We did look at 2 intersections on Laurel Street, both at Spring and at Hall, and have evaluated the operations of both of those intersections. That is in the traffic study.
What time did you look at them?
We looked at them during the peak commute hours, so generally that's 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m.
Sorry, I missed that. From what I understand now, when people are coming out of Spring, to go left onto El Camino, they wouldn't have a protected way to do that right now. Am I right?
Correct. It's just stop control.
Which means that somebody from the hotel would probably go out Spring and then go up Laurel to go out. Sorry, I don't have the map in front of me. To go out another street to make a left onto El Camino at the light. Am I?
Most likely, yes. Street,
That's a possibility. We did, our analysis shows that during those peak periods, that the delay on Spring Street is a little longer than, the other stop-controlled movements on Laurel. The volume on El Camino is quite a bit higher, so you can sit for a bit waiting for a gap there.
Okay. And then,
I'm sorry, I didn't
go ahead.
When did you do that traffic study?
We did counts at those intersections at the beginning of May. I think it was the 4th or 5th, just this year.
I'm just thinking of when the Transit Village construction really got into full gear. That was about May. Okay.
And the counts were done on May 4th, 2017. The traffic report was finalized in June 2nd.
Thank you.
And then you mentioned in your conclusions that I guess based on the TDM and our policies around the TDM and your study, that the hotel would only be requesting one less parking space than would otherwise be recommended. But I guess I'm having a little bit of a challenge reconciling a TOD reduction for a hotel versus a residential community, be it an apartment or a condo. Are people really coming to San Carlos for business and hopping on the train from the airport? Is that really what's happening?
I can't say how many of the hotel guests are going to use Caltrain. When we do studies, we usually just typically count either the number of trips or the number of cars that are parked on site when we look at it. So I don't know how many are using which other modes. These days a lot of people use Uber or Lyft. And then in addition to hotel guests, there's employees who don't have baggage who, could very well be using transit as a more feasible option for them. So our parking analysis was based partly on the city code. We compared it to the city code, but we also looked at parking surveys that we've done at numerous other hotels in the area. There are 7 other hotels that we did a parking survey, and for hotels, the parking demand is greatest at night when all the guests have made it back to the room. So we go out there late at night, like at midnight, count how many cars are in the lot, check with the hotel how many rooms they have occupied on that night when we did the survey, and we then come up with a ratio of X number of spaces per occupied room. So based on that, even though most of those hotels either have no TDM measures or very limited, only 2 of those 7 had a guest shuttle. Even with that, though, we found that on weekdays, the average parking demand was 0.69 spaces per occupied room, and on weekends it was 0.76. Spaces per occupied room. So certainly not every guest has a car.
So you bring up an interesting point, and I actually did read an article very quickly prior to the meeting that discusses Uber's impact on the rental car industry. That article was in Alaska, so I didn't think it was appropriate really for our discussion here. But since you brought it up, has Hexagon noticed such a trend in reduced parking needs because of Uber and Lyft? Are people not renting cars as much as they are taking Uber from airport and to and from their offices?
It's hard for us to say exactly how much each factors or that particular factor might be contributing to it, because we're really just measuring the end result that encompasses many different factors. So, I don't know how much Uber and Lyft might have changed things versus how many people are taking the train that might be employees. So all I know is sort of the end result, and it's only speculation for me to say how much, because I don't have any data on Uber or Lyft.
We don't want you to speculate.
Great. Thank you. Those are all my questions at this time. I'll probably have some comments surrounding this, though, a little bit later. Thank you.
Okay. Can the architect come up for me? Did you consider, well, I know you considered other designs, I guess, based on what you said, 13 other designs. Did you consider any designs that had the ramp somewhere other than adjacent to the residential buildings?
Yes, we did have the ramp initially on Spring side, but then the rooms were closer to the condos. So we decided it's better to have the rooms facing Spring and not. So currently in the entire hotel, I would say probably less than 15% of the rooms actually face the condos. Most of them are on street facing. So we switched that around because we thought that'll be a better deal.
Was there otherwise, as far as the design, was there any other reason other than you thought it would be better for the residents to have it on the residential side?
Well, one thing is that it's much below the, first of all, at the residential level at Laurel, you have the parking garage. And then you got the units on top of the parking garage. This is actually one story below the parking garage where the ramp starts going down. So they are like 2 floors above looking down onto the ramp.
Yeah, but I guess the concern, and honestly it didn't occur to me until today, and I heard the comments, is with cars, right? I mean, with people coming into the hotel at 10, 11, 9, I mean, that's when a lot of people will get in flights late. They're going to be driving in and pulling into a parking garage at 9, 10, 11 at night, and that can be noisy. So I don't know if I'm the neighbors whether I prefer having more of a setback and the ramp on the residential side, or whether I prefer to have it on the non-residential side. I mean, I'm thinking I prefer to have it on the non-residential side, but I mean, I'll be interested in getting a sense from the community what they think. But from a design standpoint, you can do it on either side.
It'll have some circulation issues. As you know, the site is very tight, so it could have some circulation issues. But one thing that we also considered was, I've done many, many hotels, even in the peninsula, where we have basement parking. And often when I visited after they are built years later, one thing I noticed is the fan room in the garage. And I asked the owner, how many times has this fan come on? So what happens in a hotel is people don't come in all at once. So even the carbon monoxide sensor doesn't kick on. For years it won't kick on, because by natural...
I'm not asking about the carbon monoxide.
I'm just saying that people don't come into the ramp one after the other. People is spaced out quite a bit.
I hear you. No, I hear you. I mean, was there ever any consideration of putting the ramp on Laurel? I mean, I recognize that it's an extremely busy street, but if we did put, not that we can, we don't have the authority to do that, but if we did make it a 4-way stop, so that people were actually slowing down, was there ever any consideration of putting it actually on Laurel?
I think it's forbidden. You can't have any driveways on Laurel.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering that too. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I also ask a question of the architect?
Not of me, but of the architect you may.
Could the ramp be covered in its current location?
Yes, it could. We could either have a full cover, or it could be a trellis type of structure. you could have a trellis covering it.
And what benefit were you implying?
Well, then you wouldn't hear the cars or see the cars, and there would be no exhaust in that location. So you'd completely screen it from the residents next door.
Okay. So my next question for you, I know you don't want to do it. I know that it's an engineering problem. Are you saying today that it would be impossible to do a green roof?
It won't be impossible. You can have certain sections of the roof, they have these prefabricated green roof vats which you can put together and get it. They're very low maintenance. It can be done, but you don't want to do it over a large span, but if we have to place it strategically so it helps the neighbors that are close to the property line.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what considerations you did with respect to environmental design? I mean, normally I would be asking for solar panels, but my guess is that solar panels would actually be less positive for the community because they'd be looking at a bunch of solar panels and they're concerned about glare. But are you using permeable paving? Are you using reclaimed water, and what are you doing as far as?
Well, the very fact that we have a covered garage, that itself gives you several lead points because you got the heat island effect taken care of.
This isn't LEED certified, is it?
It's not, but we could have got lead points because of the garage situation because we don't have the heat island effect. On the roof, we are using a very good quality material where there'll be good reflectivity of the sun's heat. And then the air conditioning system is another $1 million add-on that we decided not to use the PTAC units with holes in every window. So we have a VRF system which is extremely efficient. They'll get the money back within 5 years in terms of the electricity saved. There's a lot of very efficient, energy efficient and environmentally friendly stuff that goes into the building.
Are there any other environmentally friendly considerations that you considered and rejected?
If this building had to go for a LEED, it'll probably get like a silver rating very easily.
As currently designed?
As currently designed. Yes.
So is your developer willing to agree to require LEED silver?
These days it doesn't have much value as it used to have 3 or 4 years ago. But right now, Cal Green itself will force you to do a lot of stuff that will get you that rating.
So were there other environmental considerations that you considered and rejected?
One thing is that we did, the owners did, on another building, we had the solar panel installed on a hotel. It was expensive, but if you have...
That goes on the roof, right?
That goes on the roof.
Anything else?
I think that's about it. There's the energy savings out of that air conditioning unit. Out of 19 points, that'll get you about 12 points.
One of the requests that was made was from additional trees on the Laurel side. Is there anything, and I think the particular request from Ms. Peggy was to go from 2 to 3 to 4. Is there room for more trees on Laurel?
I think on Laurel, what happens, it tapers off. So where the landscape architect has placed the trees, it's in the area where it becomes wide. But as you come closer to spring, it becomes barely like 5 feet or even less. So there's a limitation. I'm sure you can add a couple of trees and space it out. But as you come closer to spring, it becomes very, very tight.
Anyone else have anything for the architect at this time?
Yes. While you're there, I'd like to ask the applicant, but perhaps you'd...
I'm going to bring him up too, so...
Okay. Well, let me ask the architect while he's there. If this project were approved at this point, what do you anticipate, how long it would take to complete the construction and ready for occupancy?
Construction will be 15 to 18 months.
I think the residents are interested in that. Thank you.
I have a question for staff. It might end up being for the applicant, but one of the community members brought up the EIR exemption, and I would he brought up some good points. I wonder if the staff could, or the applicant could speak to the process for the EIR exemption and the things that were brought up specifically having to do with the excavation stuff and how that was considered. And then one other thing that I wanted to bring up was, and one of the other community members was speaking about, not necessarily how much traffic, but the speed of the traffic coming down the road, especially now with all the people cutting through on Laurel. And if there's something that we can't do in the city to talk to the city, traffic people to see if there's something they can do to put some kind of something to slow it down, because I'm concerned about the safety of the traffic going on that road right now. It might not always be that way, but right now it certainly is, and I think that that's it's a potential danger. If we could at least refer that to the traffic division. Okay, thanks.
For your CEQA question, we retained a consultant and posed the question to them, here's the project, what is the appropriate CEQA document to evaluate that project? And so they took a look at, the first step is usually you look at, does it qualify for an exemption? Are there any unique characteristics that would raise to the level of a negative declaration, mitigated negative declaration, or a full EIR? So they evaluated the exemption. That memo is included in your packet, and they went through, there's exceptions to the exemption, so they went through those first to see if it qualified for any of those, and it did not. So then they went through the analysis of the exemptions and felt it was appropriate. Given the different screening levels, you've heard already from the traffic that there's no significant traffic impacts. They also evaluated the Bay Area air quality standards for greenhouse gas emissions in operation as well as during construction, and it didn't rise to any of those levels as well. They looked at, is there any hazardous materials on site, any special status species, and just really went through that analysis and determined that it is appropriate to utilize the CEQA exemption for this project. As you know, we have looked at hotels recently, and with those developments, there really hasn't been any issue that raised to the level of requiring the EIR in among itself. There wasn't any thresholds that were triggered through that process. The comment about the request for four-way stop and speeding, I did forward that since it wasn't warranted through the traffic study as a part of this project or on its own. I did forward it to the Public Works Director for consideration. I will follow up, let him know the comments came up again this evening.
Lisa, while you're up here, did the document, and I do see it, did it evaluate the project as designed, meaning did they know they were going to
Yes.
I can't believe I can't say the word right now.
Project as designed, and we gave them the geotechnical study as well. And so this isn't the end, as you know, of a project. This is really one of the big first steps. If it's approved, it would require a building permit, very detailed review, as well as detailed review of the geological, geotechnical studies. They're going to need to make sure that the appropriate construction methods are utilized to, maintain the structural integrity of the adjacent building as well. And then there's going to be inspections throughout. There's going to be certification letters by all of those experts to the city saying, yes, it was built according to my standards, yes, I inspected it. So all those steps still do need to occur.
And could you go over the construction staging process or the construction meeting, or what I think you went over it in your presentation, but could you go over that again about what the process is for coming up with the construction plan and to make sure the neighborhood's taken care of?
Right. So, what we look at in the construction staging plan is the location for where they're going to store the materials to make sure that doesn't overflow, or Public Works is comfortable if they have a location that's in the public right-of-way, they're comfortable with that. Take a look at where the construction workers are going to park. Are they going to shuttle them in? Once the grading phase is done and they have that pad poured, a lot of the construction workers will be able to park on site. And that's when you get the largest amount of construction workers on site, is after that kind of grading and concrete fill stage. And that's what we're going to be seeing at the Wheeler Plaza project as well, is once they get that pad poured, they're going to get all those construction workers on site. And then the hours, just make sure they understand, we haven't limited this project beyond the standard construction hours, with the exception of grading. Public Works does limit the grading hours, and that's mostly to offset from the peak AM and PM peak traffic hours. They offset the grading.
And I know in other projects there's been times when, just to cut down on traffic, there's been shuttles from off-site to on-site. I mean, those things are to be considered as far as part of the requirements of the construction staging plan to make sure the traffic is kept at a minimum.
Right, it's up to the contractor to show us where they're going to park the construction workers and how they're going to stage that.
Thank you.
Is there an actual prohibition against parking, having their workers park in the neighborhood?
The city doesn't have a code that specifies that, but through the review of the plan, that's what we're requiring, is that they park either on-site or immediately in front of, or bring them from an off-site location.
So it will be required. We don't need to add a condition requiring it. Is there any benefit to us adding a condition?
You could add a condition to that effect.
Okay.
I would allow it to be either on-site or immediately fronting, so they could park on Spring or Laurel immediately adjacent to the property, but not in the neighborhood.
So as a homeowner, how would someone know, for instance, if they think that there's people parking that shouldn't be parking there, and they call the police, right? And they say, can you please take care of this person who's illegally parked?
It's difficult.
How can they tell?
Yeah,
I mean, what's their recourse? How would they know, you know what I'm saying?
It's usually distinguish a construction worker park vehicle.
How do the police know what's appropriate to ticket and what's not when you're talking about construction traffic?
It's actually difficult for the police to enforce the parking. It's going to be on the building department to enforce it because it's going to be a condition of the building permit. It's not that they're in violation of a vehicle code.
Lisa, I was going to ask this as a general staff question. Oh, pardon me, Greg.
I just was trying to get my microphone to go on. Yeah,
Control that. Can I turn that off?
Yeah, I think you can over there. The issue of enforcement of the building permit condition, it definitely is a building department issue, and there's a lot of power to enforce that condition because the building department is in charge of the progress of the project. So if they don't comply and residents see a construction worker or somebody that's regularly parking outside of the area that they're supposed to park, they should definitely report it to the building department. Even if it's a weekend or something like that, they should report it the first business day after, and then the building department can do something about it. And I did want to add one other thing about, there was one comment about the environmental study, and I've reviewed the environmental study, and it specifically covers all of the infill development conditions under Public Resources Code 15332. It's all analyzed in the report.
Can the developer come back up, please? So are you open to a design condition that there be a cover over the ramp?
It all depends on what type of cover, and then we also have to get that to Hyatt and see how they're.
But if we require it, will you do it?
We will, yes. If I don't know, I mean, it's our architect's design flows with everything, yes.
And if we need you to put a green roof on there, will you put a green roof on there?
I don't think with the wood structure we can economically put one up because of the structure issues or what have you that the architect, I'm not too familiar with that kind of stuff.
Well, if you had a choice between losing some units and putting a green roof, would you put a green roof on there?
Probably not.
No?
No.
Okay. Can you agree to limit the pool hours?
Yes.
Can you agree to limit the pool hours to, what, 8 to 10?
I have to check with what Hyatt's minimum requirement are on the hours, but
Can you check on that right now?
I don't know. I can try to see if it's what their requirement is, but I have to pull it up on a website. But just to let you know that the pool is enclosed, so it's not open.
Can you use reclaimed water for irrigation?
I don't think we can't.
Why not?
I don't think it's economically feasible. We don't have much landscaping on the site.
Anything else for the applicant?
Yes. Help me understand the parking a little bit more. I see that you have, how many meeting spaces do you have in the
hotel?
We have a boardroom.
One boardroom.
One boardroom, which sits about 10.
So help me understand the parking overall.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about employees. There's less than one parking spot per unit.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the employee situation. Are you going to be charging for parking?
No, we will not be charging for parking. And the employees that are most concentrated on between the hours of 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's when about 85% of our guests are not in the hotel. So if there are issues, the parking will be below ground, and we will be encouraging our employees to take public transportation. And currently, the current housekeepers that are there do take public transportation.
And by encouraging, are you providing passes, or how are you encouraging?
Yes, we will provide incentives in terms of giving them reimbursement in terms of using public transportation. That's part of our TDM plan.
Will you accept a condition that employees are prohibited from parking in the neighborhood?
Yeah, we can try to do something in that sort.
Well, we would be imposing a condition.
I'm not sure what you mean by neighborhood, and but how about right next to the hotel?
Outside your property. That's what we're talking about.
So they would be
on-site
or take public transportation.
Public transportation.
Yes,
you do that?
We could do that.
Anything else?
Well, since you're up here, I was going to save it more for when we really delved into the design comments, but it seems that there's obviously there's some concerns about the size and the massing of the hotel, and it seems like there's one easy place to reduce the massing, and that seemed
back corner.
Yeah, that back corner that would abut 108. Am I doing that right? It seems like that could go away and still be well within Hyatt's requirement of the room count. So I would like to propose that that goes away.
So you want to put up the diagram of that?
Mm-hmm. And while you guys are moving to that, I will say, just as a comment about applicability to the general plan, this does not set back from El Camino, nor does it set back from Spring. I don't know. I found it a little disingenuous based on consistency with general plan when it says that we're encouraging these buildings to step back the upper floors. I mean, this whole thing does not step back in the upper floors at all. It has articulation. I actually think it's quite nice looking, but in no way do the upper floors set back. So that seems out of alignment with our general expectations.
So you're talking about this top left-hand corner?
I am. Mm-hmm.
And how many rooms are there on the top floor of that little?
Basically 1.5, I think.
So basically,
eliminating a 1.5.
If you take the line that comes that has the shrubbery that's adjacent to that. If you draw a line there and you were to take a floor off there, how many rooms would you lose? Yeah.
There's about 1.5 to the one for sure, part of the other one.
How about if you go to the other side of that setback between the whatever the end of the ramp and the pool? How many rooms are there?
No, there are no rooms there.
There's no rooms there?
No.
Is there any reduction in height that could be done there?
That's already below the grade.
Oh, that's already below grade?
Right. It's just where the shrubs go across as you go towards the north.
The other elevation.
Go ahead, yeah.
Oh, back. No. No, that's bad elevation. I think there was another slide that showed that a little bit better. No.
If you go back to the this west elevation, back one. Yeah, so see the two windows on the left?
Would go away.
Yeah, that's one unit right there.
Mm-hmm.
But then if we eliminate that one unit, which is our fourth floor, we would still have to have a little extension beyond where that tree is to house a end electrical unit. So we can propose to take away that one unit, and now it being 22 feet currently, it'll be around 35 feet away from the building. You go back to the site plan.
Okay.
So you're moving. Is there electrical up there? You said there's electrical at the end. Currently there is right now, right?
There is currently an electrical room.
That separation between the two buildings will become 35 feet.
There.
So we'll lose 1 unit there.
Mm-hmm. That's the top left corner, correct? Very top left corner.
Okay, anything else for the applicant or the architect right now?
Did you have a question about somewhere else that they could reduce?
I did, but apparently that was over here.
Okay.
And apparently not.
What you were thinking?
Well, apparently, according to them, this is already at grade.
I see.
So.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go back to the question about contractor parking a little bit. I'm concerned that it's going to be practically impossible to enforce. I think that it's perhaps more realistic to say that contractors shouldn't park on the residential side of the development, but to and maybe allow for contractors to park on Spring Street. Quite frankly, if it's not these contractors, it's going to be the contractors across the street parking there. So some contractor is going to park there during construction. So I'm concerned about the realism of saying no contractors can park on Spring and Laurel. I would suggest that, again, you limit it to maybe prohibiting the Laurel Street side. That would be easier, I think, to work with.
Could we put some kind of markings there, some kind of signs to make sure? Is there a way to flag that so it's really clear?
It's public parking, but again, we can think of something, maybe registering the vehicles or something like that, and the contractor vehicles who are going to be on site, that kind of thing, and letting our enforcement folks know. So that's a possibility.
That would be, anything would be helpful. Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anyone here from the community who feels strongly, recognizing that most community members who spoke don't like this project the way it is, but assuming the project was going to go forward, does anyone in the community feel strongly about the position of the ramp, a covered ramp adjacent to the residential versus a ramp on Spring Street? And if you feel strongly about it, come on forward. If not, that's fine too.
I think covering the ramp would definitely help abate the noise. I would say that it can't just be like a lattice that obstructs view. It has to be 100% sealed.
Mm-hmm.
Because noise, does not, it's not abated at all by unsealed structures. But I guess my feeling is that a bit more separation from the mass of the building is better than closer.
A ramp?
Oh, he...
So the wall that is there, 50 feet, I like having it farther away at 50 feet than at 20 feet right next to my building.
Versus if you wanted the ramp to go onto Spring.
So he prefers the ramp there. Well, he doesn't like it at all. Correct. But if he has to have it, he prefers it covered on that side.
What I want is a smaller hotel, and we shouldn't be beholden to what Hyatt wants.
I hear you, sir. Thank you. Anybody else want to be heard on that subject? Okay. Okay.
I don't know why we have to have monitored and have registration and this and that. You just park across the street over there by CVS.
Thank you.
Yeah, and frankly, the easier solutions are better, but I just wanted you guys to have a mechanism and recourse if things don't go the way they're supposed to. I wanted you guys to have a way to reach back.
None of this is getting into the record.
I know, and I get it. The point is made. So I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
I don't know who to acknowledge.
Do we need to have a roll call? Do we need a roll call?
So there's a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper-Pedersen?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bradley?
Yes.
And Chair Silberman?
Yes. Discussion among the commission.
Well, I think we should jump straight into the last comment because that will, whether we're beholden to Hyatt or whether, of course, we prefer Hyatt, because then that necessarily conditions the rest of our conversation around size and massing. So I thought I'd start with that. I do think there are advantages to having a name brand hotel. It is frustrating to have their limitations, and I would also have liked to have seen a smaller hotel. It is frustrating to have their limitations, and I am curious to know if there is still some wiggle room in that. However, I think one of the advantages to having it be a Hyatt or a Marriott or whatever name brand hotel we're talking about is what happens when the economy has a downturn and hotel rooms are not in such large supply. I think having a nice name brand hotel prevents the likelihood of this becoming a dilapidated hotel or a ghost hotel or many of the unsavory things that we all think of that happen with hotels that are not kept up as much as some of these name brand hotels are. So then that begs the question, if we are looking towards a name brand hotel and these are the limitations put on the developer for that, and of course we aren't looking if the developer is looking and we agree, what else can be done to reduce the size and massing? Or do we just discard it entirely and insist that it be smaller? And then, of course, can we even do that? Because it fits our zoning.
I just want to thank you, Commissioner Harper-Pedersen. I think now's a good time that you've closed the public hearing to kind of refocus us on what is before you tonight. Design review is one of the items before you. I've heard some comments related to the design. Remember, the view effects are not part of our design review, but bulk and mass are. So you have to kind of look at making the findings there. The other is the conditional use permit that's solely, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is solely related to a parking exception. So the conditional use permit is very limited, and as detailed in the staff report, the exception actually helps the neighbors because it kept the height of the building down. If you remember that slide that the developer had, the plane that goes 50 feet along this hillside would have resulted in a much larger structure. So this is part of the effort, in addition to the grading and dirt hall, the significant numbers you're seeing there, you've got another number, this parking exception, that's trying to also help keep the height of the building down. But it is very limited to that one issue, the conditional use permit. It's not like some of the other conditional use permits you see that are related to the actual use. So we're not talking about use as a hotel. We're talking about a requirement in our zoning ordinance that says if you want to have this parking exception, you need to get a use permit. So that's what we're talking about there. The approval of the transportation demand management plan is basically expert testimony. You can tweak that if you think it might help, and I think it is important to realize what Chair Silberman said, is that there is a remedy if that plan doesn't work. We can go back and impose new conditions afterwards once we have it audited. And then the dirt hall certificate, again, that's a function of part of the design to dig into the hill. The grading could be a lot less, but I think you're achieving a result that's probably desirable from a design standpoint, bulk and mass, by having it into the hillside. So I always do this. I sound like a broken record, but so this is sort of for the benefit of the public as well, is when the Planning Commission has a discretionary approval before it, it needs to look at what our municipal code says as far as the findings to approve or deny the project. Conditions are appropriate when they are designed to allow the commissioners to make the required finding, but conditions also have to be pertinent or have a nexus to the request being made, and they have to have proportionality to what is being requested. So it's the general rule that you have. So with that, I'm going to let you deliberate, but I just want to make sure everybody on the commission understood what's really before you tonight and what's not before you.
Greg, can I just ask a question? One thing you mentioned, I mean, we do not have a residential view protection ordinance, which much to the chagrin of many of us. But I feel like we always do take view and light into consideration during our deliberations. Are you saying that that's not appropriate for us to do?
It's not one of the. It's not a finding. Protection effect of this project on views from adjacent properties or other properties is not one of the criteria for approval or denial of the project.
Interesting.
The bulk and mass sometimes can incidentally affect views, but so I think that's kind of what the standard is in San Carlos. Other cities do have specific
view protection ordinance. So if we wanted to discuss this more vigorously for a different unnamed project that isn't in front of us, we better get working on drafting a view protection ordinance? Is that what you're saying, Greg?
That is where you would have the regulatory authority to take into account views from private properties.
Thank you, Greg. And then, so bulk and mass, though, do come under our purview as the project stands. So then, in coming to, I guess, a nexus to what is allowed versus what we can ask, while it seems clearly that the height, they come well under the height as is listed in our zoning ordinance, and was listed in that slide that showed the red line. On the other hand, it seems like in the general plan that was quoted in our staff report that on all sides of the building, all building facades and stepping back upper floors in order to reduce bulk and mass would be something we can request. Am I misreading it? And if I am, please explain how I'm misreading that.
Those are policies, and so it doesn't say it's required. Okay. It's a direction. It's a general direction. And so what happened is, taking that in mind, there were certain locations in our zoning ordinance that do have very specific setback requirements for upper stories. For instance, Laurel Street has a 10-foot setback on the 3rd and 4th floors. There's transition zones along East San Carlos Avenue because there's residential next door. However, because of where this is in the community, where this corridor is on El Camino, it was decided as part of the general plan that if you're going to do high density, high building development, this is where it should be. And it has historically been zoned for 50-foot high buildings for dozens and dozens of years. So that's the differences. It's sort of it's a direction, it's a vision toward the future, and then specifics are put into the zoning ordinance.
Thank you for that, Al. So this is not a transitional zone. It's mixed use Northern Boulevard. Am I quoting that correctly?
That's right. And right across the street is I believe it's RM 59, is that right? Which is the highest density zoning or general plan land use density in our city, and it allows for 50 feet across the street as well.
I'm sorry, across...
Right across Laurel, on the other side of Laurel. Even though some of the existing buildings are 1- and 2-story buildings, if they were to be redeveloped, they could be developed at a much higher density. And historically, that's the way it's been there for decades.
Thank you for that clarification, Alan. I just think it's important that the public hear that, because over and over again, many people came up to discuss how this is a residential neighborhood and a residential district, and I think you can see clearly much of the hotel will be in a residential district. But it also does front El Camino, and that gives us different zoning expectations from both our general plan and our zoning ordinance. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, I would agree. And Greg had mentioned that, as you noted, the mixed-use North Boulevard is not a residential zone in itself. It's a commercial mixed-use zone. But across the street on Laurel, you do have residential, which is the RM 59.
So on the back side of, we're basically on the back side of the hotel that's on the faces that's on Laurel. Is there any step down for Laurel Street, or is it they can go up for the?
The zoning would allow for 50 feet at Laurel.
Okay, so at this point, I guess the first question is, are we prepared to approve a project something like this tonight?
I'm trying to think of what other questions to ask before I would be able to make a decision. And what I would need to know, or what I would need to hear in order to. I think
Mr. Chairman,
what else you would ask?
Perhaps it would assist the commission if we kind of walk you through what we heard. Maybe not. You can direct me otherwise. But
I don't know.
It might. Because the commission discussed changes to the building, and it might be good to kind of list those out, list all the changes to the current design to lessen its bulk and mass, to protect for noise and emissions and such, to kind of walk through those, because the commission did discuss making changes to the building to perhaps make it more appropriate.
Would that help you, Shannon?
Yeah, that would. I'd like to see a summary.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so...
I'm slow. I need it twice.
I would never accuse you of that. I would never accuse you of that.
Okay, thank you.
So what we heard is, with regard to the rear of the building, or the side facing 1 Laurel Street, what staff heard is that two critical things, or 2 or 3. One was that the commission discussed moving that wing of the building where it says 22 feet and moving that away from 1 Laurel by removing at least 1 unit We heard the architect say that removing one unit would increase that setback on the 4th floor to 35 feet. That was one thing, to reduce the bulk and mass and move the building away. The second thing that we heard...
That's the northwest corner, is that right?
Correct. On the screen it shows 22 feet at that northwest corner, so you're talking about increasing that to 35 at this point. The second thing that we heard was concern about the ramp and noise and perhaps emissions coming from the ramp, which is below grade. The question was asked, can the ramp be moved out to Laurel or Spring, or could the ramp be covered in its current location? We heard that theoretically the architect said it could be covered. We heard the resident next door say that they would prefer to have a bigger setback on that side of the building, but would like assurance that if it is covered, that it would be fully covered and not a lattice. So it would be some solid material to cover that, which again would lessen noise and emissions in that location. You discussed the location of the pool, the hours of the pool. You talked to the applicant about limiting the hours to the pool as much as possible. The applicant said that they would look at limiting it to what the Hyatt minimums would be, what Hyatt would accept. So reducing the hours as much as possible, but in compliance with Hyatt's standards. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I heard.
Well, one commissioner would like to see an increase in the number of trees on Laurel to the extent feasible.
Thank you. And the applicant did say, I recall, just to kind of fill out the list, that they had an issue with requiring bicycles as a condition, which is a condition in the plan, so they would like that removed as well.
One commissioner was interested in a condition prohibiting on-site, neighborhood parking, both by staff as well as by construction workers on the residential streets. One commissioner would like to see either a green roof to the extent feasible or roofing materials designed to eliminate glare.
So going back to the, the northwest corner, I'm changing the 22-foot piece to make it where, I guess, make it to where it lines up with the bottom there. Where's that, 35 feet? And it gets rid of one unit, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm trying to find, that would be as part of trying to figure out which finding that would come under. If we change that, what are we saying, that we're improving that finding, or the...
It's design review.
Design review?
Yep.
Okay. All right, that was my big question, is just saying that, what kind of justification will we have to have to just say, just do it just because we...
Design review. Even the pool hours, we could move the pool to the other side as part of design review.
Okay.
So.
All right, that helps me.
How would you guys feel about limiting construction hours?
I was going to ask about that. I mean, I feel great about it. You mean...
dirt hauling is limited. I mean, we have plenty of nexuses for that. So Monday through Friday, I don't know how I would feel as a resident next door on a Saturday and Sunday construction schedule. So I would
How does the city attorney feel about that?
You have a lot more discretion on the dirt haul permit. The general construction, I think, we're bound by the municipal code. So I think what staff already said was that's part of the building permit process.
Are you saying none of our developments we've approved in the last 5 years have had a limitation to...
Well, not on a dirt haul certificate, but on a use permit, a general use permit that's talking about the use, and you have a lot more discretion on that. If you were going to tie the the construction, you would have to tie it, it seems to me, for the general construction to the use permit and find it and have some evidence on the record of a nexus for that.
He's saying no. He doesn't like to say no, but he's saying no.
In a very, very polite way.
Yeah. All right. Well, did that help, Shannon?
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, the thing that bothered me the most is just one corner, and I'll say because of the design review considerations, that I would feel comfortable with that modification to where that one unit's removed. That would, I think that would be a better fit for the community. And then I already talked about the thing that they already forwarded to Public Works as far as, just finding someone to slow down that area, because I'm concerned about right now, at least, that there's traffic considerations. That's my big ones. I personally would not require a green roof. I would hope we could come up with something else that might be aesthetically pleasing, but I think a green roof is a little bit onerous. And I do recognize how far that this is back into the bedrock, and that there's been considerable cost would be borne by the applicant should they move forward with the height and the height capacity of the extension of that one unit. That's all I have to say.
So is everybody else okay with the height and massing except for that one unit? Except for me, am I the only one still having a little bit of challenge with the massing of this? If I am, then...
Well, I mean, I think you posed it. The choices are not approving the project.
Right.
And, I mean, because they can lose 3 more units. I mean, if you want to find a place to take 3 more units.
I've been looking almost the entire time. And seeing as nobody hires me to architect their buildings, I'm not coming up with the best solution for that.
I mean, you could take another couple of units out of the, I'm going to call it the U. I mean, I guess it's kind of a, the 50-foot, the 50-foot setback.
Yeah.
I mean, you could take another couple of units out of there, but I don't see how that improves anything.
Right. I know that's
from a design
my
standpoint.
That's exact. I mean, I don't want to take units out just to take them out.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think there was a obvious reason to take out that back corner unit, and that makes a big difference. I'm less scratching my head a bit about the other ones, and maybe it's just that I'm not seeing the articulation on the El Camino side from these pictures the way I want to see them. But we do drive down El Camino every day. It seems a little flat to me. Of course, that's not the part that the neighbors are most concerned about. That's just a design concern that I'm having. Oh, I do have a comment about one of the residents asked about or had mentioned a concern about privacy, and I'm wondering if there is something else that can be done to screen some of the windows that are closer to the Laurel condominium complex. I don't know what that might be. Maybe it's an awning
we can require opaque
of some
windows.
sort, or something that might enhance the privacy on that side a little bit more.
We could require opaque windows.
Okay. I mean, I was thinking, yeah, or some sort of, I don't know.
Well, you could
Angled
have
awning.
the condition be either opaque windows or other covering designed to provide privacy screening.
That would be great. If we can add that, I would appreciate it.
How about you, sir? You're good? How about you down there?
Speechless, for once.
Really? Well, I mean, speechless in what way? Where are you at?
I don't know. It's hard. I mean, I'm having issues, as always, with the parking situation. I know what these traffic... I mean, we all love TDM plans. That's... we've talked about that many times. So I'm having... And, of course, that's an issue because of the amount of units and the massing and everything else. So it's kind of... we're going back in a big circle, as we always usually do. So I'm just trying to get there. I'm not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we can ask the question or whether they'd be willing to answer a question, but there is a point at which this becomes infeasible, not feasible for the applicant. And I don't know if they'd be willing to discuss that or not, because we're talking about units and stuff.
They said 100 units, that basically Hyatt won't. So this particular project is a Hyatt project.
Yeah.
Hyatt will not back this project if it doesn't have 100 units. So that's
I
the
didn't hear that
feasibility.
first time. That's
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I mean, sounds like maybe one vote yes. Are you a yes?
Oh, wait, how many units are we to take that one away? 99?
I'm sorry.
No, it would be to 103.
103?
Right.
I'm at a yes.
So
If we could take that, if we have the parking awning, that's the solid parking cover, and if we have the unit removed.
Is there a third yes?
Here's my concern. I'm not saying I'm a no. My concern has been that it's kind of a story of two buildings. One that affronts El Camino and that has some specific ideas from the general plan and from our zoning and what it could be. And then a back part that really does go into a residential area quite a bit, even though it's not zoned residential. And I do think that's an important distinction to make, that this project, in fact, is not in a residential zone, but it abuts it, and we don't have an appropriate transitional zone, or we don't have a transitional zone that we might have in other areas. So my concern is just finding a way to ease that transition as much as possible and to address the other concerns. I think number one, obviously the whole city is having construction fatigue. Every single one of us has lived near or next to a construction site, and I think it's important that we do note that that's happening, that we understand it's happening, and that we want to make sure that as much as we have the power to make sure that the city's on it trying to address those concerns. Cars are going fast on Laurel. They are using it as a cut-through for Ralston, and doing whatever we can ask from Public Works to help that, be it a four-way stop, would be helpful as well for these residents.
I don't want to cut off deliberation, but I mean, are you getting? I mean, so
Am I getting somewhere?
yeah. I mean, someone want to make a motion? Does someone not want to make a motion? Is more deliberation going to help? I mean, either
Hear what
we
she had to
should-
say. I'm still entertaining what she had to say and her opinions. I mean, I know what my vote is now, but usually she has good input, and I'd like to hear the rest of it.
Okay.
You know what, David? I'm going to keep talking. No, I'm just
As
kidding.
long as you
No,
like.
I think
we have till 10.
I know. 10:30, I think, but that's fine. Don't worry, I won't keep us here that long. Like I said, I also have a challenge that the upper floors don't step back. I see that it's allowed by our zoning, but it seems off to me if that's just seems a little bit off to me. I'd like it to step back a bit. It is going up a hill. Is that necessarily going to stop me from voting yes on it? To be honest, I don't know. I was looking for a way to find a way to soften it, and you can roll your eyes at me all you want, but I'm looking for a way to soften this a bit.
I know that they presented.
If the applicant would be willing,
Is there a,
let's get there somehow.
The applicant want to come back up?
They're architectures, right? Maybe they might have an idea that we haven't thought of that would be relevant, so I don't know if it's worth giving them an opportunity if they have something they want to say.
Keep in mind, I'm only one vote. If nobody else is bothered by that, then
I'm trying to
nobody
count
else
3
is bothered
votes.
by it.
I don't count 3 votes. So, I mean, and someone needs to make the motion other than me. So, I mean, if someone wants to make a motion, we can vote on it. If no one wants to make a motion, we can vote it down. We can continue it. I mean, we got to do something. And normally I make these motions, but now I'm chair again.
If we were to not vote on it today and say bring it back again, what would we ask for? That's my thing, is what would we ask for to bring this thing into what we feel is what's it on purview to say yay or nay to today within the permit, the Gert Hall and the design review?
So, I mean, I think that we're looking at a project of 104 units that looks mostly like this, and we can affect the design, and we can affect the parking. So we can do all sorts of things with respect to the design. But of course, if we change the design that to the extent that it reduces it below 100 units, then they're not going to want to build it. So, well, this project, because they would need to do something completely different. So we're basically limited to changing the design in a way that eliminates up to 4 units or voting against it. I don't see any other choices. We can bring the architect back up and we can identify those things that we don't like and see whether they have any other ideas, but they only have 4 units to play with.
And I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
And I also believe I stated I like that it's a Hyatt. I think that's good in general for the eventual downturn that will always happen at some point with regards to the consumer desire for a hotel unit. I think it's good to have these brands. I'm wondering if there's a way to soften that upper story a bit. And I don't see it right here because I'm not an architect.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing that at least one commissioner would like to see some potentially different designs on the facade on San Carlos Avenue, because most of the parts of the build up, and maybe on Spring Street as well, but the Laurel Street side is not as bulky. It's just the other sides of the building.
When you said San Carlos, you meant
I meant El Camino. Excuse me. El Camino and Spring Street sides are the taller sides. So I hear at least one commissioner asking for some more, or at least some options on articulation there.
Softening.
And softening. Or maybe it's materials. There's a lot of different ways you can try to soften it. So, the other issue is I'm just going to bring you back to what's before you tonight. Is you've got the design review, the parking, the transportation demand management plan, and the grading and dirt haul permit. And I'm just going to put this out there. The brand of the hotel is not relevant to your decision tonight, and the number of rooms is not really relevant to your decision. It's the bulk and mass, if you're going to talk about the size of the building. I think you've established a record on the removal of the 1 unit to increase the setback. But in other areas of the building, you haven't set that record. So if you want to reduce the bulk, size, and mass, that has the indirect effect of removing a unit here or there, you can discuss that. But really, the room count and everything else is not really part of your findings.
So through the chair, one of the reasons that I asked to kind of go back through the things that the commission talked about is perhaps that would lead to a motion where all those things that were listed for one of you commissioners could be made. So with all the changes that were discussed, if you agree with all of them, the person making the motion would just list them out. Mm-hmm. As Greg noted, we heard one commissioner with an issue with regard, I think, to the El Camino elevation, but I think if you're going to make changes to the elevation, I'd like to go over that elevation before you made any changes to explain it and talk about it more.
I'm prepared to make a motion, but I need a little help formulating it. And it basically is with the design change that we spoke about with regards to the 1 unit in the setback, and also with regards to the garage cover.
I can feed the motion and you can decide whether you like it.
Sure. Yep.
And then you can make it. Can I get the motion up, the original motion? So the motion would be, if you wanted to make it, Shannon, was that you move that the Planning Commission approve the design review, conditional use permit, and grading and dirt hall certificate for a new hotel at 26 El Camino Real, APN 46-150-060, based on the findings and for the reasons incorporated in the staff report, and as conditioned with the following design changes, moving the northwest corner back to a 35-foot setback, covering the ramp with a covering that reduces the noise and emissions and is fully covered, reducing the pool hours to the Hyatt minimum, increasing the trees on Laurel to the extent feasible, conditioning with respect to construction and employee parking, that parking not be on residential streets, and changing, and requiring that the roof be designed in a way as to eliminate glare as approved by staff.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
No. Sorry. No.
Vice Chair Bradley?
Yes.
Chair Silverman?
Yes. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is 8...
Through the chair, I just want to make sure that the intention of that motion was to cover all of the items for approval, because
it's in the motion.
Okay, well, I thought they might be set up as separate motions, but maybe I was mistaken on that.
I mean, it covered dirt hall, it covered conditional use permit, and it covered design review.
All right, just for the record, I just wanted to make sure it was there.
Based on my recollection, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the enclosing of the garage. Yes, we need
that's
to
absolutely
amend
right.
that.
Yep, that is true. In addition, I believe the intention of the motion was to include a requirement that the windows facing the residential buildings be obscured with obscure glass or with some other design feature designed to provide privacy. Was that
the garage? Oh, it wasn't there.
Well, there's two issues here. One is I would recommend, since we don't have any specific standards, that you delegate what's reasonable or feasible to staff on the privacy screening. And then second, technically what you're doing is there would need to be a motion for reconsideration of the matter that was just concluded, so you can then reconsider the prior motion that was approved and then add this condition to a second motion. So there's procedurally you need to do a motion for reconsideration.
Is that your motion, Shannon?
Yes, that's my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Can I have an additional roll call, please?
Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
No.
Vice Chair Bradley?
Yes.
Chair Silverman?
Yes. Okay, moving on to the next item, 800 East San Carlos Avenue, variance and architectural review for signage on the new residence inn hotel.
Good evening. As indicated, the applicant is requesting variance and architectural review for signage at 800 East San Carlos Avenue for the Landmark Hotel. Oh, there we go. No. Okay, sorry about that. The hotel is located at 800 East San Carlos Avenue. It's along Industrial Road and East San Carlos Avenue. The site is 3.92 acres. The site previously consisted of 3 commercial and industrial properties that were merged for the new Landmark Hotel development. The site is just under 4 acres in area and also includes the private area of East San Carlos Avenue. The site is also adjacent to Highway 101, as well as the future bike and pedestrian overpass. A little bit of background. The city acquired the 3 properties and marketed for a hotel development. The city selected R.D. Olson to develop the 204-room hotel. Upon recommendation by the Planning Commission, the City Council certified the EIR and approved the development in July of 2015. The hotel is currently under construction and will be completed by the end of this year. The code currently allows 200 square feet of signage for the property, as well as 1 pole sign with a maximum of 200 square feet of sign area. So when you combine that, if they had a pole sign and the maximum signs for the property, it would be 400 square feet for this site. The applicant requests a variance to allow up to 445.6 square feet of signage, as well as the code requires architecture review for signs visible from Highway 101. 3 of the sign plan includes 4 wall signs facing the north, south, and east elevations. There would be no wall signs facing Industrial Road, as well as 1 monument sign at an angle located along Industrial Road and East San Carlos Avenue. Signs indicated as G and F on this plan are directional only, and they're exempt from our sign area requirements. An example of the wall sign, it's approximately 123 square feet in area with individually illuminated channel letters, white for Residence Inn and red for the Marriott. Staff finds the scale and size of the wall sign in keeping with the size and the design of the building. And then this is the proposed monument sign oriented at an angle towards Industrial Road and East San Carlos Avenue. The overall structure will be 5 feet tall with a stone facade to match the building. The monument side is 1 side only and is 21.6 square feet in area. To consider for a variance, there's some very specific findings that our code does require. And staff found that this is a uniquely shaped lot with narrow configuration frontage along Industrial Road, and the long frontage are on the private East San Carlos Avenue. A portion of the property, as you see, also wraps around behind the building at 551 Industrial Road. These are actually, this property and the one at the corner are the only 2 large GCI zoned properties that front an a single-family residential neighborhood. So that's another unique situation that's unique to this property and the adjacent one. Due to concerns expressed by residents, the applicant has agreed not to install a pole sign and not to install any wall signs facing Industrial Road. That further limits the site visibility for people traveling to this location. The applicant did conduct some neighborhood outreach as well as outreach to the adjacent property owners. You have 2 letters of support in your packet, and I can let the applicant expand on the conversations with the neighborhood. Staff mailed and published the required public notice, did not receive any further comments. Staff is supportive of the request, and there's the formal motion. Be happy to try to answer any of your questions. The applicant also has a brief presentation.
Does anyone have questions for staff at this time?
None from me.
The applicant.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tony Rozek, Vice President with R.D. Olson Development. First, appreciate staff's thorough presentation and analysis of our proposed sign program. And let me go back in history, prior to the Planning Commission and City Council approvals, we did have several outreach presentations with the community. And during those sessions, there was one major concern. And our original proposed signage for the property had its main sign on Industrial Road, as in building mounted, facing Industrial Road, thus facing the residential neighborhood. The community voiced its concerns with an illuminated light being 4 stories high and facing directly across Industrial Road towards their homes. So we were happy to accommodate and relocate the sign, and thus relocating that front sign over to the 2 sides, one facing East San Carlos Road and one facing Holly. And as staff had mentioned, in receiving feedback with the dissatisfaction of the In-N-Out Burger pole-mounted sign, we pulled our pole-mounted sign off the table and thus proposed 2 building monument signs, both facing Highway 101, one capturing traffic driving northbound, which would be here, and one capturing traffic driving southbound on the back side of this elevation here. So just to reiterate the location of the signs, the originally proposed sign that was facing the neighborhood on Industrial Road at this location was moved and split into two to capture traffic driving north and southbound along Industrial Road. The wall monument sign had stayed with no objection, and the pole mounted had changed and split into two wall mounted along Highway 101. We did reach out to the community recently and offer to have meetings at the job site and also give them a tour of the current construction. 2 community members did respond, including one from the Greater East San Carlos Neighborhood Association. And one comment was happy to hear in that he said that you respected their original wishes and that they're happy to see that we don't have a pole-mounted sign, nor do we have a sign facing directly at the residences. So we did fulfill our promise. The only minor concern was in regards to the brightness of the signs. So with that said, let me describe how the signs will be mounted and how they'll be illuminated. These are individually extruded letters with LED, very efficient LED lighting. This will not be a billboard type of sign if we compare it to an In-N-Out Burger or the pole-mounted sign across Highway 101 with the Fairfield Inn and Burger King. It's not one large panel, not a 200 or 300 square foot panel that illuminates in one large sheet and acts more like a spotlight. These are individually illuminated letters. The letters are framed in aluminum, therefore preventing light pollution to the south. They will illuminate straight out. The lumen factor is approximately 130 lumens per square foot. So in comparison, if we take the letter R, the largest letter within the signage, that letter R, its lumen output at the source would be equivalent to a 100-watt incandescent light bulb. If you remember these light bulbs back in the day, that's what the letter R, that's how bright the R would be. And obviously the brightness would decrease. Well, sorry, let me get terminology correct. Brightness will be consistent, but the lumens would decrease with the letter size because it's based on square footage.
Can you stop for a second? I just want to make sure I understand that, because we've seen these lumen patterns before. And so, just to cut to the chase, will these signs, will they radiate out, what impact to the community, if any, will there be with the illumination?
Okay, great question. Okay. Here's our next slide.
Okay.
So, in trying to give a tangible example of how bright our signage will be, this is our project that we developed in Tustin, California. A very similar situation, 4 stories along Highway 55. We're 4 stories here in San Carlos along Highway 101. And the main sign is above the 4th floor, Residence Marriott. And I took the picture with the street light in reference because this is our same situation. We have a street light and a future traffic light at the main intersection of Industrial and East San Carlos. And this gives you a point of reference, as in the brightness of a sign as compared to the brightness of a street light. And I hope it's obvious that the street light really has a much higher intensity.
So this picture on the left actually is what would be facing 101? Is that the luminary equivalent to what would be facing 101? And then you're showing on the bottom right how that would look if you were standing across from Industrial?
The pictures are taken from the same angle. One is zoomed in, the other just tries to highlight the fact that the street light is what's generating
more light than the actual.
Much more light than our building mounted light.
Okay. Thank you.
That concludes my presentation. Just trying to keep it short for our time limit here. Thank you. And I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I do have a question. Should there be any challenges with the illumination on sign E or G? Is there an ability to turn the lumens down a bit? Should they become a bit too bright for the neighborhood?
By the examples we've just shown, I truly believe it will not be too bright.
I agree.
And if it would mean attempting to connect it to a dimming type system, I would worry that being connected to a dimming system would turn this into a very subjective situation, and that somebody may keep requesting it's too bright, when we truly believe that this proposal is the right answer for this location, for this height.
So as it exists now, there isn't a way to turn it down.
It is not connected to a dimming system.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to actually announce, because I didn't do it at the beginning of this project, but that I had ex parte communication with the applicant about 3 weeks ago regarding this project. I wanted to declare that.
I have also had ex parte communication with the applicant.
As have I.
I never return anybody's phone call, so I didn't.
I have not had any contact with them, but I want to commend you. I believe I read that you deleted a 40-foot tower sign facing the freeway.
Yes, correct.
And I want to commend you for that.
Thank you.
Distraction for drivers on the freeway or something we should always endeavor to discourage. I will divulge that I own 3 Marriott timeshares, but that won't affect my vote.
Congratulations. I hope you enjoy them.
I do.
Any other questions or
No, I want to
comments
make a
for the
motion.
applicant? You want to move to close the public hearing first?
Yeah. Move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh, one of us can.
Go ahead.
And I don't think Angela's got to vote yes on something yet, so why don't we go ahead and acknowledge Angela on that. All in favor of Angela's second?
Don't have to do a roll call.
We have to do roll call.
Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper-Patterson? Yes. Vice Chair Bradley?
Yes.
Chair Silverman?
Yes. Now, do you want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that the Planning Commission approve the variance and architectural review permit for 445.6 square feet of signage for the new hotel at 800 East St. Carlos Avenue.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Harper-Patterson? Yes. Vice Chair Bradley?
Yes.
Chair Silverman?
Yes. Oh, there's more. Where'd my agenda go? I lost it. Next up is report on recent city council actions.
Nothing this evening.
Any planning commission comments or reports?
Nothing from me.
All right. Any correspondence other than that which has already been identified?
No.
Any planning staff comments, reports, and updates on current projects?
Yes, I'd just like to take an opportunity to go over just a little bit about the upcoming Planning Commission meeting schedule. And this is a reminder that there will be a special meeting this month on July 31st. And we have 2 items on the agenda. One is 906 Holly. This is a grading and remediation-oriented application. And then another for a property at 500 Walnut, another downtown infill project with new housing. The next reminder is that the August 7th Planning Commission meeting has been canceled. The Commission has agreed to have, in lieu of another recess in August, that you will have your regular hearing date of August 21st, which will be reserved for a study session on the upcoming cannabis ordinance that staff is currently working on. And then finally, we'll return to our regular schedule beginning in September on September 5th, which happens to be a Tuesday. So just a reminder about that. And then just in terms of updates for the Commission, I just wanted to share with you that staff is continuing to work with the Single Family House Advisory Committee. In fact, we're having our 4th meeting with the committee this Wednesday. It'll be here at City Hall, 6 p.m., Enterprise Room. And we anticipate having our 5th meeting with the committee sometime in August, but a date has yet to be determined. So I just wanted to let you know we are moving along with that project as well. And that's all I have.
Question. Did you have a Citizens Planning Academy meeting earlier this month?
We did not. I don't know the exact date.
It's coming
I think
up?
the program begins in September, but the community developments portion of that program will occur in October. You're welcome.
Is it all? Then the meeting is adjourned.